When the metal box was cut open, the smell that escaped was unmistakable. Death had been trapped inside for 10 days. Katlyn Marie Harp and her twin sister, Heather Lane, shared the kind of connection that goes beyond ordinary sibling relationships. From childhood in Lewistown, Pennsylvania, the two had been inseparable, finishing each other's sentences and knowing instinctively when something was wrong with the other. Even as adults, this bond remained unbreakable. Every single day, without exception, Katlyn would call her sister. It didn't matter if she was exhausted from working multiple jobs, dealing with the challenges of raising 5 children, or going through difficult times in her marriage. That daily check-in was sacred. If life got too hectic for a phone call, they'd text. If texting wasn't possible, they had the Life 360 app on their phones, allowing them to see each other's locations and know the other was safe. At 33 years old, Katlyn was described by everyone who knew her as having a heart of pure gold. She was one of the kindest, most genuine people you could ever meet, friends would later say. Her warmth, laughter, and love touched everyone around her. She had moved to Hemlock Township, Columbia County, where she lived with her husband, Vincent Lloyd Harp, in their home on Fairview Drive. Katlyn was working hard to build a stable life for herself and her family. She was receiving methadone treatment at a local health center, determined to overcome her struggles and be the mother her 5 children deserved. Despite the challenges she faced, Katlyn never missed checking in with her family, especially Heather. Heather, who still lived in their hometown of Lewistown in Mifflin County, could sense when something was bothering her sister from miles away. They shared everything, their hopes, their fears, their daily struggles, and their dreams for the future. This connection would prove to be more important than either sister could have ever imagined. But as June 2025 approached, there were troubling undercurrents in Katlyn's life that she may not have fully shared with anyone. Vincent Lloyd Harp was not a stranger to domestic violence, though this dark side of his character wasn't immediately apparent to everyone in the community. On the surface, he seemed like an ordinary man living an ordinary life in rural Pennsylvania. But court documents and police records told a different story entirely. In 2018, Vincent had been charged with terroristic threats, reckless endangerment, simple assault, and harassment in connection with allegations of domestic violence involving his first wife, Stephanie Downs Harp. The charges were serious enough that Vincent had to post $10,000 bail. Stephanie had been brave enough to come forward and report the abuse, detailing incidents that painted a picture of a man capable of frightening and violent behavior towards the women in his life. But the story of Vincent's first wife became even more troubling when viewed through the lens of what would happen years later. Stephanie Harp died on March 13th, 2021, at the age of 33. Her death was officially ruled an overdose, but those who knew about Vincent's history of domestic violence couldn't help but notice disturbing patterns. Vincent had been married to Stephanie for 7 years, and they had 3 children together. Community members recalled seeing bruises on Stephanie, police cars at their house, and watching a woman who seemed to dim year by year. The domestic violence charges from 2018 suggested that the abuse had been escalating, but after Stephanie's death in 2021, there was little follow-up investigation into the circumstances. What people in the community didn't know was that Vincent was already beginning to show signs of the same controlling and potentially dangerous behavior that had characterized his first marriage. June 19th, 2025 began like any other day for Katlyn Harp. She went about her daily routine, caring for her children and managing the various responsibilities that filled her life. At 6:45 p.m, Katlyn had her final phone conversation with her sister, Heather. To anyone listening, it would have seemed like a typical sisterly chat. They discussed their day, their children, and made tentative plans to talk again soon. There was nothing in Katlyn's voice that suggested she was in immediate danger. She sounded tired, perhaps, but that was normal for a mother of 5 who was working hard to keep her family together. After the phone call ended, Katlyn's Life 360 app continued to show her location at the Fairview Drive residence she shared with Vincent. The app tracked her movements normally until sometime between 7:30 and 7:37 p.m. when it suddenly stopped updating. This wasn't entirely unusual. Phone apps sometimes glitch, batteries die, or people simply turn off location services for privacy. But what happened next would set off alarm bells for anyone who truly knew Katlyn Harp. Cell phone records would later show that Katlyn's phone had its last activity at 9:25 p.m. that evening, with the device registering as being at their home on Fairview Drive. Then, sometime after 9:25 p.m., a text message was sent from Katlyn's phone that would immediately raise suspicions for those who received it. The message was sent to family members and read, "I need a break and space to get out my head. Please don't destroy my stuff." To someone who didn't know Katlyn well, this might have seemed like a reasonable message from someone going through a difficult time, but to those who knew her best, every single word felt wrong. First, the spelling error, break instead of break. Katlyn was careful with her writing and rarely made such obvious mistakes. Second, the phrasing didn't match how she normally communicated. Most importantly, the message suggested she was leaving voluntarily, which would have meant abandoning her 5 children without any explanation or plan for their care. Anyone who knew Katlyn understood that she would never simply disappear without making arrangements for her children. June 20th, 2025, marked the first day in years that Heather Lane didn't hear from her twin sister. As morning turned to afternoon without any contact from Katlyn, Heather's worry began to transform into genuine alarm. Heather tried calling Katlyn's phone repeatedly, but the calls went unanswered. She sent text messages that received no response. Most troubling of all, the Life360 app that had been tracking Katlyn's location remained static, showing no movement since the previous evening. By 4 p.m., Heather knew something was seriously wrong. She called the Hemlock Township Police Department and requested a welfare check on her sister. When she spoke with Patrolman Bradley Sharrow, Heather explained that her sister lived at 20 Fairview Drive in Hemlock Township with her husband Vincent, and that it was completely out of character for Katlyn to go even a single day without communication. Heather also shared that she had spoken with Vincent Harp, and his explanation for Katlyn's absence troubled her. Vincent told Heather that he and Katlyn had argued after dinner the previous night, but claimed he had no idea where his wife had gone. He showed Heather the text message that had allegedly been sent from Katlyn's phone, but something about the whole situation felt deeply wrong to her. When Patrolman Sharrow conducted the welfare check, Vincent's story remained consistent. He and Katlyn had argued, she had left, and he didn't know where she was. Vincent appeared cooperative and concerned, but experienced officers often know that appearances can be deceiving. A regional BOLO, be on the lookout message, was sent through East Central Communications to all local police departments, asking them to watch for Katlyn Harp. Her description was circulated: a 33-year-old white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, last seen wearing casual clothing. For the next 2 days, June 20th to 22nd, Hemlock Township Police conducted interviews with family members, checked locations Katlyn was known to frequent, and even contacted the health centre where she received methadone treatment. No one had seen or heard from her since June 19th. During this time, Vincent continued to maintain his story. He provided police with screenshots of text messages he claimed to have sent to Katlyn's phone, showing his attempts to reach her. He said he had no contact with his wife since sometime between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. on June 19th. But as investigators would soon discover, Vincent's movements during these crucial hours told a very different story. By June 22nd, the complexity of the case had grown beyond what the small Hemlock Township Police Department could handle alone. Columbia County District Attorney Daniel Lynn made the decision to request that Pennsylvania State Police take over the investigation, bringing in the resources of PSP Troop N Major Case Team under the leadership of Sergeant Eric Schellenberger. The state police immediately deployed an impressive array of investigative tools. Drones took to the skies, scanning vast areas of rural Pennsylvania. K-9 units searched through wooded areas and along waterways. Helicopters provided aerial surveillance. Most importantly, cellular analysis specialists began the painstaking work of tracking digital evidence. On June 23rd, just after midnight, Corporal Brian Knoll and Trooper Ryan Goller interviewed Vincent Harp at the Pennsylvania State Police Bloomsburg Barracks. This interview would prove to be a turning point in the investigation. Through careful questioning, investigators determined that Vincent had been in constant communication with Katlyn via his cell phone in the days and hours leading up to her disappearance. He claimed to have received a message from Katlyn in the early morning hours of June 20th, notably after her Life 360 application was no longer active. But as the interview progressed, Vincent's story began to develop troubling inconsistencies. Initially, he told investigators he had met with his counselor on the morning of June 20th. Later, he claimed he had not met with his counselor at all. He first said he had his phone with him Friday morning, then changed his story to say he had left his phone at his office. More concerning were the locations Vincent omitted from his account, and the interactions with Katlyn he failed to report. Experienced investigators recognized these omissions as potential signs of deception. While Vincent was being interviewed, other members of the investigative team were gathering surveillance footage from businesses and traffic cameras throughout the area. What they found would begin to paint a picture that contradicted everything Vincent was telling them. At approximately 5:40 p.m. on June 20th, the day after Katlyn's disappearance, surveillance cameras at a Sunoco gas station located at 100 Montour Street in Danville captured Vincent entering the store. He walked around for a few moments before approaching the cashier with an unusual request. He asked if the store sold gloves. When the cashier informed him they didn't sell gloves, Vincent asked if he could borrow a pair from the store, saying he only needed one pair. Security footage clearly showed Vincent placing the gloves in his back pocket before returning to his silver Chevrolet Silverado. But the most damning evidence was yet to be discovered. Footage from the VFW clearly showed Vincent driving his silver Silverado pickup truck with a large green metal box visible in the truck bed. Additional cameras from the Middleburg Police Department captured the same vehicle with the same box, traveling through rural, mountainous areas. Cell phone data analysis revealed that Vincent's phone had been tracking to specific locations that made no sense if he was simply going about his normal daily activities. On June 21st, his phone showed him traveling to the area of Shade Mountain Road around 10:30 a.m. This location would later prove significant when investigators found drag marks in the area. At approximately 6:08 p.m. that same day, Vincent's phone was tracked near Hollow Road, just west of Harp Lane, the area where his former property was located. Perhaps most telling was Vincent's behavior in the days following Katlyn's disappearance. On June 24th, Vincent sold his 2022 Kawasaki UTV. When Pennsylvania State Police Forensic Service Unit recovered and tested the vehicle on June 25th, they found presumptive positive results for human blood on both the driver and passenger seats. Trail camera footage from a neighbour showed Vincent using this same UTV on June 18th, just one day before Katlyn disappeared. The investigation was building a digital timeline that contradicted every aspect of Vincent's story, but investigators still needed to find Katlyn herself. Meanwhile, Katlyn's family was conducting their own search efforts, refusing to wait for official channels to bring their loved one home. Heather coordinated approximately 15 family members and close friends into organized search parties. Using social media platforms, she shared information, coordinated search areas, and followed up on tips and leads that came in from the community. The family's social media posts reached thousands of people, spreading Katlyn's photo and information far beyond the local area. A GoFundMe campaign was organized by family friend Blake Marks on behalf of Heather Lane to help fund the search efforts. The campaign, which would eventually raise over $10,000 from 216 donors, demonstrated the community's investment in finding Katlyn. Heather later wrote about their search efforts. It was a good group of about 15 or so family church best friends between reading comments, teen messages, out in the trenches searching, marking maps, following the signs, determining what leads, tips are true or false, doing our own investigation because we were supposed to find her. The family's determination was driven by their intimate knowledge of Katlyn. They knew her habits, her favourite places, and most importantly, they knew she would never voluntarily abandon her children. This knowledge guided their search efforts in ways that might not have been apparent to investigators who didn't know Katlyn personally. As the days passed, the family's search efforts became more focused and systematic. They studied maps, followed up on every possible lead, and refused to accept that Katlyn had simply chosen to disappear. Heather's instincts were telling her to focus on locations connected to Vincent, particularly properties he had owned or frequented. Her knowledge of his history with the property at 86 Harp Lane would prove to be crucial. 9 days after Katlyn's disappearance, Heather Lane's determination and investigative instincts would lead to the discovery that everyone had been dreading. On the morning of June 29th, 2025, Heather Lane and her search party made their way to the remote property at 86 Harp Lane in Montour Township. This was the nearly 40-acre plot of mountainous land that Vincent Harp had owned until October 2023, when he sold it to new owners. The property was densely forested and difficult to navigate, with steep terrain and thick undergrowth that could easily conceal secrets. The search party spread out systematically, calling Katlyn's name and looking for any sign that she might have been in the area. At approximately 12:30 p.m, the search party's worst fears were confirmed. About 180 yards from a cliff edge, just slightly north of where Vincent's property line had been, they discovered a large green metal storage container of military style. The box was secured with a padlock, but even from a distance there was no mistaking the smell emanating from it. The unmistakable odour of decomposition. Heather immediately called Pennsylvania State Police Bloomsburg Barracks to report the discovery. When she spoke with investigators, her voice carried the weight of 9 days of searching and the horrible certainty of what they had found. State police, along with emergency personnel and the coroner, responded quickly to the scene. The current property owners gave consent for law enforcement to access the land and investigate the container. When officers cut through the padlock and opened the metal box, they found human remains in an advanced state of decomposition. The identity was confirmed through a distinctive tattoo that Katlyn wore, 1111 heart, on her collarbone, a marking that was unmistakably hers. Columbia County Coroner Jeremy Reese pronounced Katlyn dead at 3:15 p.m. on Sunday, June 29th. Based on the totality of evidence and the circumstances of the discovery, he immediately classified the manner of death as homicide. The green metal box matched exactly what surveillance footage had shown Vincent transporting in his truck bed during the days after Katlyn's disappearance. By 7 p.m. that same day, Vincent Lloyd Harp was arrested without incident and charged with criminal homicide, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. The autopsy performed by Dr. Christopher Sullivan at HNL Lab Medicine in Allentown revealed the challenges of investigating a case where the victim's body had been concealed for over a week in summer heat. The examination found no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds or penetrating trauma, and no fractures to the extremity bones. However, the advanced state of decomposition limited the pathologist's ability to conduct a detailed examination. The official cause of death was listed as undetermined pending toxicology results. This created an unusual situation in the criminal justice system. Homicide charges were filed despite the inability to definitively determine how Katlyn died. Coroner Jeremy Reese explained his rationale. A drug overdose can still be a homicide, noting that the circumstances of the body's disposal clearly indicated criminal activity. Approximately 1 week after his arrest, Vincent Harp called investigators from the Columbia County Correctional Facility and asked to speak with them. What he told them represented a dramatic departure from his previous claims of ignorance about Katlyn's whereabouts. He claimed that he and Katlyn had been huffing nitrous oxide, inhaling laughing gas for recreational purposes. Vincent said that Katlyn had put a plastic bag over her face to enhance the effects of the gas. Vincent's new story was that he passed out from the nitrous oxide and woke up to find Katlyn dead in their bed next to him. Rather than call for help, he claimed he panicked. He confessed to disposing of Katlyn's phone and smartwatch by throwing them into Fishing Creek near the Bloomsburg Fairgrounds. According to his confession, Vincent placed Katlyn's body in the metal storage container that had been in their yard. He then drove to his former property at 86 Harp Lane, claiming that Katlyn had previously expressed a desire to be buried there. At his preliminary hearing on July 14th, 2025, as Vincent left the courthouse, he made a statement to waiting media that seemed designed to support his new narrative. The drugs killed her. Judge Doug Brewer presided over the preliminary hearing on July 14th, 2025, where prosecutors presented evidence from multiple state troopers who had worked the case. After reviewing all the evidence, Judge Brewer ruled that there was sufficient evidence to send all charges against Vincent Harp to trial. He remains incarcerated without bail at the Columbia County Correctional Facility as of December 2025, awaiting his trial. The case has drawn national attention through various media outlets. However, the case has raised troubling questions that extend beyond the charges against Vincent. The death of his first wife, Stephanie Harp, in 2021 is now being viewed through a very different lens. Stephanie died at age 33, the same age as Katlyn. Her death was ruled an overdose, but given Vincent's history of domestic violence charges and the circumstances of Katlyn's death, some are calling for Stephanie's case to be reopened and reinvestigated. After Katlyn's body was discovered, Heather Lane posted on social media, "We found her. Emphasize the we. God had a plan, and this had to mean something. Katlyn has made a huge impact all over the world, more than any of us could have imagined." The GoFundMe campaign, which had been established to fund search efforts, was redirected to help cover funeral expenses and memorial arrangements. The final total raised was $10,200, demonstrating the community's support for Katlyn's family during their darkest hour. The case is a reminder of the importance of trusting instincts when someone we love goes missing. Heather Lane's refusal to accept the explanation that Katlyn had simply chosen to disappear, combined with her intimate knowledge of her sister's character and habits, directly led to the discovery of evidence that solved the case. In the end, justice was served through the determination of a family that refused to give up, the thoroughness of law enforcement investigators, and the damning evidence left behind by someone who thought he could hide the truth in a metal box on a remote mountainside. But for Katlyn's 5 children, her twin sister, and all those who loved her, no amount of justice can bring back the woman whose heart of gold touched everyone around her. The wounds remain, and the pattern of domestic violence that may have claimed 2 wives at the age of 33 serves as a sobering reminder that sometimes the most dangerous place for a woman is in her own home.